Andrea Jenkyns is at it again, grabbing headlines. Well, not very many headlines. You really have to search to find it. But do you remember her? Well, she was the lady, if you remember, who gave the one-finger salute as Boris Johnson's government collapsed around her ears, voluptuously swathed in a bright yellow dress, so bright it rivaled the sun for attention. Was it the bold colour, or her boldly raised digit, that truly stole the headlines that day, or perhaps her defiant, moody disdain for convention as she casually fingered the press in defiance? Or perhaps it was simply the fact that she represented the failure of Boris. Whatever it was, it marked a peak in British political theatre, an operatic finale as the Johnson era hit the rocks. Now, Dame, well, she's a dame. It's sort of like Dame Trot, isn't it? Ooh, finger my pies! Dame Andrea is back. Dame Sarah, is back making headlines, and this time for ditching her conservative roots in favour of Nigel Farage's Reform UK. Ooh, I'm going to have some reform with you lot. Whoop! Get your fingers out! And so, the defection wasn't subtle, was it, really? Yes, it wasn't subtle. Why? Because she insisted a while ago, when she was asked, she insisted she wasn't defecting to Reform, but coyly attending the conference with a borrowed press pass. And clearly loyalty to political parties is a more flexible guideline for Dame Andrea. Loyalty to herself, however, remains steadfast, put the finger where it's due. Because her defection wasn't subtle. Campaign leaflets from the last general election prominently featured her photographs, with a smiling alongside Nigel Farage, not Rishi Sunak, which perhaps speaks volumes. Her words, she respected Farage. She's not going to finger Farage, is she? She respected Farage as one of the most influential politicians of our generation. A line that likely caused Boris Johnson to choke on his breakfast. That's rather like a finger down the throat, isn't it? Her departure to Reform UK, announced with Farage at her side, came with rhetoric so grand it could have been borrowed from a melodrama. The Conservative Party, she declared, is beyond salvage. I could have said that too. And Reform is now home to the patriotic bravehearts. Well, what we need is a few more patriotic bravehearts from the current Conservative party in Parliament to defect to Reform, leaving the Lib Dems to replace them as His Majesty's loyal opposition. Perhaps Reform is where Spartans go when they've run out of battles in the Tory camp. Perhaps Reform is where people go when they didn't win the election. Of course, her presence is not without irony. She was awarded a damehood by Boris Johnson. Ooh, a dame! Despite, or perhaps because of her unwavering support for his chaotic leadership. To defect to Nigel Farage's anti-immigration populist rallying cry just months later adds another layer to the ever-thickening Jenkyns plot. Then there's her colourful campaign for the Lincolnshire mayoral position, a newly created role that has Dame Andrea hoping to turn Reform's resurgence into real power. She's framed herself as a warrior for the grassroots, probably with a finger up to everything else. I'm only interested in the grassroots, she might say, finger poised, rejecting the tired establishment she once defended. But let's not forget the backdrop to her Reform coronation, a Farage-led party still dealing with its own teething issues, including embarrassing candidates and controversies. The irony of Farage offering lessons from Trump's campaign while cleaning up his party's image is rich enough to spread on toast. Still, Dame Andrea's antics offer Reform a certain edge. Love her or loathe her, any guesses where I belong in that lineup? Love her or loathe her, she knows how to steal a headline. Whether it's the finger, the Farage leaflets, can we do another F, or her gushing remarks about Reform's conference energy, while still technically a Conservative, Andrea Jenkyns is the gift that keeps on giving for political satirists, if not for Lincolnshire voters. Perhaps Her greatest legacy, however, remains that ironic finger, forever immortalised as a symbol of her brazen, unapologetic style. Iconic, the iconic dactyl. Whatever you think of her politics, she's undeniably entertaining, whether she's sinking with the Conservative ship or, as she dramatically put it, trying to captain Reform UK's ship into new waters. One thing's for certain, where Dame Andrea goes, chaos will follow, and frankly, British politics would be much duller without her lead. Fingers up! Dame Andrea Jenkyns is on her way. La 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 la.